I believe so. Oh, I'm back in the in-camera. Leave.
You are not. You are in the public session. It is just a slide that we have up indicating that we are in camera. I'm just waiting for a few other people to join before we resume the in-camera session. Just a reminder that this is being broadcast, and that's why I've been muting people as I see that they are on their way in. And welcome back. It is the afternoon session of the budget committee meeting where we are talking. And somebody muted me. So my name is Paul Russell and I'm the chair, and I would like to welcome everybody back to this. Over to the clerk, I believe we have enough people back, including yourself, our solicitor, the CAO, chief of police, certainly enough councillors that we have quorum. Let's proceed if we can.
Mr. Chair, I have to ask the question. On my screen, it says this meeting is in camera.
Exactly, and that was a slide that was being displayed by the clerk to indicate to anybody who was viewing the public session that we were somewhere else.
Oh, I get it. Thank you so much for that clarification.
You're welcome. And so we are back. Welcome, everybody. From the list that we had before lunch, I have councillors Smith, and then Cuddle, and then Lovelace, and then Kent. So Councillor Smith.
Hey Chair, I'm currently have IT on my computer because I'm having some serious issues here. So I was just going to move putting the budget item in the parking lot. So if I know Councillor Oates, he's going to second it. If he wants to do that and someone else, I'd be happy to do that while I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my computer here.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move that the 60,000 for the Journey to Change over budget has to be added to the. I'm not happy to move that for.
Thank you.
Okay, and so we have the Journey to Change training, $60,000. Councillor Mancini is seconded. Go ahead, Councillor Oates.
I actually don't really have any comments. I thought the chief gave a very good explanation of something that is very worthwhile that I'm happy to support, and we'll debate it perhaps when it's when we get into a brawl about the parking lot. Parking lot brawl. We haven't had one of those in a while.
That's because we're meeting virtually. So at this point, we have on the floor the Journey to Change training being added to the parking lot. Are there any speakers for this motion?
Question.
I don't see any speakers, so over to the clerk. Would you mind running through the roll, please?
Beginning with District 1, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
District 2, Councillor Hensby. Believe Councillor Hensby was trying to move over the appointment. District 3, Councillor Kent.
In favor.
4, Councillor Purdy.
Voting in favor.
5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor.
District 7, Councillor Mason.
For the motion.
8, Councillor Smith.
He might
District
still be having IT issues.
Okay. District 9.
Four. I can speak, but you can't see me.
Thank you, Councillor. District 9, Councillor Clary.
Yes.
10, Councillor Morse.
In favor.
11, Councillor Cuttle.
In favor.
12, Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion?
District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
District 15, Councillor Russell.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Outhit.
Yes.
Mayor Savage. And that was a
And
yes
the
from
mayor-
Mayor Savage.
Yep.
So that motion passes. We have $60,000 for Journey to Change training in the parking lot. Councillor Smith. No, you were speaking, Councillor Cuttle. We're back on the main motion.
Okay, back on the main motion. Yeah, it was a follow-up question for Chief Kinsella around the question I asked in the first round about the speeding and stunting offenses, and wondering what that looked like, those numbers looked like year over year. And this was kind of leading up to the same issue that Councillor Kent has spoken about, and some of my other council colleagues, around traffic safety and the priority it has currently with policing and what we can look forward to in 2021.
And it looks like the chief is having IT issues as well.
There we go. You can hear me, I take it? I'm not sure if you can see me.
We can hear you, we cannot see you.
So I'll just answer the question for the councillor and through you, Chair, just in regards to stunting infractions. So in 2015, there was 12. 2016, there was 9. 2017, 12. 2018, 15. 2019, there was 20. In 2020, there was 66. I don't have the number year to date for this year, but I know there has been a number of stunting charges. We recognize the danger to the community with that particular offense. Not only is our traffic unit in tune and regularly targeting that particular offense, but they are out looking at a number of others. I mentioned earlier, we work in conjunction with Brad Anguish and his team around intersection safety, around that dialogue and how we can do and be better, respond to citizen complaints, respond to information that's forwarded from the councillors. And we also have, patrol officers and CROs contributing to traffic safety as well. The dialogue is continuing with the RCMP and with TPW to see how we can have greater impact. And there are a number of other offenses. For example, distracted driving in 2020, there was 510 charges laid. In 2019, there was 411. In 2018, there's 337. So you can see an increase in the enforcement piece. It's unfortunate that people are not getting the message, but there is continuing education from our end, but I'm sure that we can do better in that regard. And in 2020, there was 60 summary offense tickets issued in relation to intersection type offenses that occurred.
And okay, and I think you spoke to Becky's comment earlier about, I think Becky did a good job of kind of explaining the priority that traffic safety has for us right now as a council, as a priority, and how we can continue to ensure that traffic safety remains a priority with HRP as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Smith, are you back?
I'm back. Thank you. I don't remember what items I already spoke on. Sorry, the computer the computer issue kind of messed in my email wasn't working as well, so it was an issue. Sorry, just give me 3 seconds. Okay, all right. I'm good. So One of my questions, and it was addressed by Councillor Lovelace a long time ago. Well, it feels like a long time ago, but I just want to give her a shout out for addressing the issue around the victim services and the stats around that. Kudos to you for catching on that item. The other issue we already dealt with. I was going to get John or even Jane or whoever else to clarify why we were putting items in the parking lot when usually we don't discuss specific items for HRP's budget. But we've done that now, and if it's worth anything, maybe someone could still explain it. But usually we don't, as council, have any say on specific items in the HRP budget. But this is a little different when it's an over budget. And Jock talked about that earlier. And everything else has already been addressed, and some of my bigger comments will come at the time we have discussions at the parking lot. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Well, I see John looking to respond. Go ahead.
Just on the HRP budget, Chair of the Board of Police, Councillor Smith, is correct. Effectively, what you have here in terms of the overs is a request to consider an increase in the overall envelope. And while you can set it aside and you have a rationale as to why that additional increase might come forward, and there would be an expectation as to how it would be spent. At the end of the day, the board is free to determine how that actual budget will be spent. Having said that, next year, if you're unsatisfied where it went, you'll relook at the envelope. So essentially what you're doing is responding to requests to increase the overall envelope and doing that through the BAL list, the same as everything else.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So I just have a really quick question, and it's in regards to revenue. In thinking about all of the heavy tickets for stunting that we're handing out, I'm just trying to get a sense of what the revenue line is. I understand it's, certainly we've got fewer tickets because of COVID this year. Can we have a discussion and clarification on the revenue that's coming in from writing tickets and how that works? I'd really appreciate understanding that better. Where's the revenue? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, and through you, Chair. And Ms. Fraser may want to add something to this after, I'm not sure. So HRP does not get any of the revenue from the summary offense tickets. The fines are paid through the courts, and then it's divvied up from there with a percentage coming back to the municipality and a percentage to court costs, victim services, those kind of things. And I'll leave it at that and turn it over to Ms. Fraser.
Thank you, Chief. Through you to the chair and committee. You summarized it quite well. There is a little bit of summary offense ticket that goes in the budget, but it is very small. So it is allocated based on depending on where the ticket is. So there is a little bit that will go to TPW based on some of those tickets that get written. But from a policing point of view, it is very much as the chief has indicated.
Okay, I'm just looking at the budget where it says revenue adjustment summary offense tickets. Those fees have dropped because of COVID. So I was just looking for a bit more information on that. Is it normally much higher? Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you. So I've been mulling about where I want to go, if anywhere, with the parking lot item around more support for street safety around traffic and speeding and such. So I guess I want a little bit of clarity on two things. One is that appropriate, I guess, to do here, or would it be more effective to do that at the commission level? And the other part is, if Chief could talk to me a little bit more about his commitment to that to determine whether or not I'm one of these ones that I want to keep the rate at no change, the tax rate. So I am not, I don't necessarily want to be the ones that keep adding to the parking lot, because that just creates a bigger issue around being able to keep our tax lower, maybe even and flat. So I need a little bit of more clarity, Chief, on when you left it, you said I certainly could get some, take another look. And then as well, I think it was the chair that said you put a bug in his ear. So I guess I'm asking, what do both of those mean when it comes to maybe finding a way forward to make sure there's more emphasis or greater emphasis on addressing the speeding issues and the unsafe conditions on the streets in HRM?
Thanks, Councillor, and through you, Chair. Just so I understand, you are looking for further emphasis on traffic safety without an increase to the budget?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay. And without a impact on policing services?
Yeah. Can you wave that magic wand?
So, you know, what I would encourage you to do, Councillor, is to talk with your the commissioner, the Board of Police Commissioners, and give me some direction, and I'm happy to bring something back to you.
Yeah, okay. I'll leave it there. I will, just so I understand the process. We're sort of approving in principle, or I don't even know if there's going to be a motion on this. This is more about information. Ultimately, the decision is made at the commission level, and when we go to the larger approval on the budget, I could still have a kick at that if I go back now to the commission and not put anything in the parking lot. Jacques, maybe you're the one to help me with some clarity here, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, through you to the councillor and other members of council, this is probably the longest yes/no answer I've ever experienced. Actually, the question being put to you for you today is whether you approve or not the budget. The contents of the budget are the purview of the Board of Police Commissioners. So the council's question today is really, do you like this budget or do you not? And if the answer is not, you send it back and you ask them to reduce the budget. You can't tell them how to reduce the budget. You can't tell them what should be put into the budget. All you can say is whether or not you like the amount. If you don't like the amount, it's your responsibility to say that. If you, in either way, right? So to your question, though, you know, at the board, if the council approves the budget as is today at the amount, with the parking lot items to be determined later and adjudicated later, then the Board of Police Commissioners' work is done, right? If the council says no, we don't like the amount, change the amount and come back to us, and you probably have to give them some direction as to you want to increase it by 2%, decrease it by 5%. What's the direction? Then the Board of Police Commissioners will have to adjudicate on that and come back to you with another budget. That's where we are right now, right? In terms of this process, this is much different than any other business unit, just because of the existence of the Board of Police Commissioners, and council's decision point is yes or no. It's not about debating the elements within the budget itself. That's the purview of the Board of Police Commissioners. Hope that helps.
Yeah, a little bit. Thanks. It's helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it there, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and keeping all that explanation in mind, the peculiarities of the parking lot and the police budget, I would like to move the clerk position 85,800 to the parking lot.
Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Councillor Clear would second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Austin. This is on a new motion, so we start again with 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't need that. This position, I think, is worthwhile in adding. And when I look at the police budget this time around, it is very much, to me, a stand pat budget. There's not an expansion of the officers of staffing really at all. But as we've heard, there is definitely some need and value in this position. And I think we would be wise to add this to the budget. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the court disposition clerk?
Question.
Call for question. Over to the clerk.
Beginning with District 2, Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
3, Councillor Kent.
In favor.
4, Councillor Purdy.
In favor.
5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
District 6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor.
7, Councillor Mason.
In favor.
8, Councillor Smith.
4.
9, Councillor Cleary.
Yes.
10, Councillor Morse.
Voting in favor.
11, Councillor Cuttle.
In favor.
12, Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion?
13, Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
District 15, Chair Russell.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Oathead.
Yes.
Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
And Mayor Savage.
I'm sorry, I've been focusing on something else here. Can you just give me a sense what we're voting on right now?
This is $85,800 for the court disposition clerk. Over.
In favor?
And that motion passes, so that is now in the parking lot. I don't see any further speakers. I think it's great that we are talking about traffic, and yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, we were talking about litter and people dumping, and I think it's fantastic that we are at the state where we can consider those, and we don't have to apply serious discussions around the criminality of what's going on and what our police have to take into consideration. We have a question from Councillor Hensby on the mounted unit. Go ahead, Councillor. I'm not sure that fits within the budget, but go ahead.
Well, we had a presentation from the public talking about possible cuts. They talked about the polygraph as well as the mounted unit. Now, could I just ask, regards to the mounted unit, our motorcycles and horses, what we still have in play in on force, and with the COVID predicament we're in, a lot of parades that the horses were used for, a lot of ceremonial things are kind of now on hold. How many horses do we have in our on force, and just 2, I thought, and but I was kind of wondering what is the total cost of the keeping horses. But I like the symbolic image they provide. They're great for parades, they're great for civic events, they're great to be pictured at Point Pleasant Park and outside. I don't know if they're allowed in the public gardens, but beside the public gardens is nice. But just kind of curious of those kind of comments. Is the horse mounted unit necessary anymore in regards to that? I like it as a tourism attraction, good community relationship program. Maybe we should work in tandem with the Bengal Lancers with regards to the grooming and maintaining of the horses. I don't know, but I'm just kind of curious of those kind of comments about should we get rid of some of this people call frivolous things.
I don't believe we are empowered to get rid of them, but I would ask the chief for a response on the mounted unit.
Thanks, Councillor, and through you, Chair. So we currently have a contingency of 1 horse and 1 rider. The approximate cost for that is about $260,000 annually. I'm not sure if I'm hearing to get rid of the deployment or to keep it, but that's where we are financially and numbers wise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further speakers again, so thank you very much, everybody. I have pasted the motion in the chat, and so I would hand it over to the clerk to call the roll on this motion. That is that the Budget Committee direct the Chief Administrative Officer to prepare the Halifax Regional Police 2021-22 budget and business plan as approved by the Board of Police Commissioners on January 28, 2021.
Beginning with District 3, Councillor Kent.
In favor.
4, Councillor Purdy.
Voting in favor.
5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
7, Councillor Mason.
For the motion.
District 8, Councillor Smith.
I think you have to do it again, Ian.
Okay, thank you. District 9, Councillor Cleary.
Yes.
10, Councillor Morse.
In favor.
11, Councillor Cuddle.
In favor.
12, Councillor Stoddard.
Voting in favor of the motion.
District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
15, Councillor Russell.
In favor?
16, Deputy Mayor Outhet.
Yes.
1, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
2, Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
And Mayor Savage. Mayor Savage.
I expect we will hear from the mayor on that shortly. This motion passes, and so at this point I would like to move along to the RCMP. If Chief Superintendent Gray.
Raise your hand.
Chair, just a quick question, if I can.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure, and I may have missed it. Did we deal with the fourth item, the training technician, or is that falling off?
That has not been moved into the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I would like to welcome Chief Superintendent Janice Gray to the meeting, and I believe you have a presentation for us.
I do. Thank you very much. I just had to briefly change my notes from good morning to the good afternoon. Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Mayor and Chair, I wanted to thank Chair Lindell Smith for his opening remarks earlier. I've done my best to incorporate some of the earlier questions into this presentation. So obviously at the end, if you have further questions, then I'm available for that. Wanted to thank the councillors who were able to attend and participate in the virtual RCMP information session yesterday. That's the first level of our enhanced strategic communications plan, which is a more efficient and effective communication relationship with our key partners. There's many levels to the strategy. First and foremost is us doing a better job at telling our story and providing our partners in government the right information at the right time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is our org chart. It's obviously very basic and that doesn't really need much explanation, but I wanted to just add that I'm privileged to have an exceptionally experienced leadership team in the officer cadre who all bring their diverse policing careers to the table as accomplished leaders.
If I can interrupt for a second, we are one slide ahead. We are now showing the org chart. Thank you.
There we go. Inspector Pepper, she's our officer in charge of the Halifax District Administrative Services. Many of you have already met her. She's responsible for finance, human resources, professional standards, and all things accountability. Inspector Landry, our officer in charge of police operations in the West. Inspector Nibbs is our officer in charge of our CID, and we have an incoming Inspector Matt Turner, who is our officer in charge of East operations. Next slide, please. In regards to our highlights, first, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, RCMP Nova Scotia established an operational team, which Halifax District team members participated in and contributed to. This team secured personal protective equipment for all police agencies in Nova Scotia, except for HRP, to maintain safe and effective operations. They coordinate and track the COVID-19 enforcement for all the agencies and ensure rigorous plans are in place to support RCMP operations and critical business recovery processes within the COVID-19 environment. The team continues to support and track the impact of COVID-19 on all the RCMP employees throughout the province. With the support of the DOC COVID team, Halifax District has maintained operations with a focus on the safety of our membership and staff, and we continue to assess and align our resources. Presently, our community and schools resources are working in their substantive responsibilities. The result for Halifax District RCMP is assurance that we are well positioned to continue to serve the municipality amidst the global pandemic. From March 22nd, 2020 to February 10th, 2021, we experienced 2,132 COVID calls, including 1,282 Quarantine Act files. There was 94 charges laid within these calls. In regards to our Criminal Investigations Division, as Chief Kinsella has already highlighted some of the successes of the RCMP and HRP Integrated Criminal Investigations Division. I won't repeat them here, other than to say the establishment and staffing of the Integrated Special Victims Unit has been a collective vision of ours, which is now in place. Further to this, and in support of our most vulnerable clients, which also answers some of the questions posed earlier by Councillor Lovelace, we've transferred key resources into the Integrated Vice section that have successfully built rapport with at-risk women and girls, and this continues to translate into greater cooperation with our most marginalized victims. We have moved legally trained RCMP member and another RCMP secondee with online sexual exploitation experience into our child exploitation unit, which has greatly assisted in clearing of the backlog of files. Prevention for these and other crimes targeting women and girls includes education and training. We have a newly developed divisional strategy for sex crimes, which is aligned with the National Sex Assault Review Team and our Provincial Sex Assault Independent Review Committee. Our membership also have a number of mandatory courses, including trauma-informed response, domestic violence, introduction to human trafficking, and ODERA, which is our domestic violence risk assessment tool. A key strategy in prevention has also been in our partnership with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, which is another source for training, consultation, and education material. And the RCMP has a standing memorandum of understanding with this group. Strategic comms on online victimization and other child exploitation crimes. We have a very fulsome strategic communication strategy. Finally, in CID, we sent a senior RCMP NCO on our national team commander training and have supported him in developing business rules to streamline and formalize the investigative processes in homicide investigations. In April 15th of 2020 in Hammonds Plains, the Halifax District Street Crime Enforcement Unit charged a 29-year-old man and seized 17 firearms following an investigation during the pandemic that began in early January after a caller reported an erratic driving complaint where the driver was waving a firearm out of the window. Over a 2-month period of investigation, surveillance, and many other police techniques, multiple search warrants were drafted and executed on residences, vehicles, and electronic devices. This led to the seizure of 17 firearms and evidence of 52 offenses. In regards to our street checks report, Halifax District RCMP continues to work collaboratively with our partners and with input from the community to complete the 53 recommendations outlined in the report. Of the number of recommendations that pertain to the RCMP, we have successfully completed a number of them, 12 specifically in Section 4. It's challenging to articulate an actual number of completed recommendations overall, as many cross over into those held by the Department of Justice. A number of the recommendations are being addressed by many initiatives that the RCMP has already underway. Examples of these could be our recruiting strategies, operations, bias awareness training, and many other courses that were previously established, as well as HR protocols. As per the recommendations in the report and subsequent discussions with the Board of Police Commissioners and community representatives, the street check data related to Halifax District RCMP will be securely held and later purged to give community members time to access their personal information. This communication strategy continues educating the public on how to access their personal street check information through the ATIP process. In regards to road safety, our last resource increase was in the 2018 fiscal year and included dedicated traffic resources. It's apparent that this unit continues to demonstrate the necessity for those positions. Halifax District experienced a 26.2% decrease in MVAs reported. Those are all types combined from January to December 2020 when compared to the same period in 2019. We experienced a minus 23.57 decrease, in reported vehicle pedestrian collision with 13 accidents from January to December 2020 compared to 17 of the previous year. We laid 331 impaired driving charges in 2020, 15.7 increase when compared to the period in 2019, and during the same period, 252 impaired driving suspensions were issued, a 38.4% increase. From January to December 2020, we received 207 suspected impaired driving calls from the public, a 4% decrease compared to 2019. In regards to aggressive driving, we've experienced a 40.5% decrease in the number of aggressive driving SOTs issued from January to December when compared to the same period in 2019, but stunting SOTs were increased by 142.8%, going from 21 SOTs to 51 in 2020. There's a number of reasons why these have increased or decreased. Some of it might be COVID and other implications. However, we have had very significant targeted enforcement and with maximum resources during the COVID restriction, as our membership had a 6-month leave restriction placed on them. Next slide, please. In regards to our current and planned initiatives, diversity and inclusion, our equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy is a robust and comprehensive change agenda that introduces fundamental changes to the RCMP systems that will allow us to promote an inclusive organization that values diversity and serves employees and communities with dignity and respect. It also focuses on identifying and reducing workplace and service delivery barriers for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women, persons with disabilities, and members of the LGBTQ+ communities. We're reviewing workplace policies and practices through an EDI and GBA+, which is gender-based analysis, and anti-Black racism lens to combat systemic racism. We're reducing barriers across the career continuum for our employees. This includes ensuring there is a better representation on selection boards and establishing talent development plans for occupational groups with low diversity. We're also developing new learning products on anti-racism and cultural learning, in addition to the currently available course on cultural awareness and humility, which is mandatory for all employees. We're linking our EDI goals to performance, promotion, and compensation, and this will further ensure the advancement of our EDI inclusion, a key deliverable in alignment with our Vision 150. Some near-term milestones. We have mandatory anti-racism training for all employees, which is developed and informed by external experts, and training will be focused on reducing discrimination and advancing racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. And included in this is our cultural awareness and humility course, which I'm sorry I mentioned before. Further to these initiatives, each division, Nova Scotia, has an agreement in principle with the Depot Division, which is our basic training, which allows visible minority cadets from Nova Scotia the ability to move back to the province if they so choose. We've also identified position for employment equity, or otherwise known as special measures positions within the division and the district. Our recruiter is working and liaising with agencies who can assist with getting more contact with our visible minority groups. For example, the African Canadian Services Branch within the Department of Education. We have adapted to COVID-19 with using virtual pre-exam sessions and pre-application engagement sessions. We're also asking applicants to self-identify their status when they write the exam so we can track our efforts in regards to attracting a more diverse cadet clientele. There's also a new pilot program out of our national headquarters, which is a questionnaire for recruits on bias, which will form the foundation for bias awareness screening tools. The RCMP will also implement modern applicant screening tools to promote diversity and ensure candidates have the characteristics and the attributes needed for policing in the future, including screening for bias, racism, and discriminatory attitudes and beliefs. RCMP Nova Scotia continues to expand our training and outreach to build connections with our African Nova Scotian communities we serve as a way of enhancing our relationship. Doing so is a priority for us. We have a diversity coordinator who works to increase understanding of African Nova Scotian culture across the district and the division. They also coordinate the Commanding Officer's Black and Racially Visible Advisory Committee and chairs the Visible Minority Employee Committee. Inspector Pepper represents our district on the RCMP National Headquarters Race Database Collection Working Group. The RCMP is undertaking research and engaging key stakeholders, experts, and employees on the collection of disaggregated race-based data on police interactions with racialized and Indigenous peoples. This information will support an evidence-based assessment and update of RCMP policies, processes, and practices to address systemic racism and other forms of discrimination. The RCMP will also participate in work being undertaken by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and Statistics Canada to improve the collection of public reporting of statistics on Indigenous and racialized group in police-reported crime statistics on victims and accused persons. Inspector Pepper also represents our district on the Wortley Report Research Committee on Data Collection, which Chief Kinsella previously reported on. They're examining models from other jurisdictions on data collection, including race-based data on police stops, and to evaluate the applicability of such models to the Nova Scotia context. Next slide, please. In regards to our current and planned initiatives, the RCMP conducts a yearly national survey which includes both internal and external partnerships and diverse community participation. Canadian views of RCMP policing services. It focuses all across Canada. However, 70% of the respondents are from RCMP contracted provinces. There is a 72% overall satisfaction, which includes agree or strongly disagree. There's also surveys of our contract partners, mayors, Indigenous leaders, as well as local, provincial, and territorial government representatives who are responsible for RCMP contract. There's an 85% satisfaction rating. We have a survey of policing partners and stakeholders as well, with an 86% overall satisfaction. You can access the surveys and all the results on our national website, and they were last completed in November of 2020. The RCMP also conducts internal surveys, which is a continually examining our employee satisfaction, kit and clothing, training, employee wellness, etc. These two are listed, the topics are listed on our external website. Despite the overall positive results, there's always areas that we can do better. These surveys serve as a starting point to identify challenges and opportunities that need to be addressed. The feedback not only serves internal and external government reporting needs, but it's also to inform and improve RCMP service delivery. The Halifax District RCMP is working with HRP to develop the community survey, one of the recommendations from the Wortley report, with the goal of gathering key information on public safety matters, knowledge critical to operating an effective and innovative police force. In regards to our modernizing our integrated policing agreements, currently there are 15 MOUs shared between the RCMP and HRP. Many of these have not been updated since the early 2000s and require updating to reflect our collective vision for more efficient and effective integrated policing model. These consultations will modernize the integrated policing agreements with Halifax Regional Police to strengthen our existing partnership and ensure leading edge policing services to HRM. In regards to staffing in critical areas, this past year my team has been working through a number of human resource challenges which had accumulated over time. We're working to support our membership, but also frontline responders within sharing operational positions of operational police officers in them. Halifax District, our membership serves 94% of the HRM geography, which is populated by 41% of the HRM residents, yet we have 26% of the overall police officers for HRM. We're currently looking at options to conduct a review of our staffing model. One option is through the General Duty Policing Resource Model, which is an RCMP developed business tool. It helps estimate the number of general duty members needed for frontline policing to ensure quality service delivery. However, the GDPRM was developed for PROS data, that is the other database that is utilized outside of the HRM, and we're looking to see if it can be adapted to Versadex. It's also important to note that due to COVID and 2020 being an atypical year, we may need to consider postponing our initial assessment because the GDPRM is meant to stimulate what a typical year looks like, and we're hesitant to make any operational or HR decisions or recommendations based on 2020 data. Sorry, my phone just rang, my apologies. In regards to our communication strategy, the Halifax District RCMP currently has one dedicated strategic communications position. My leadership team was working to enhance our Halifax District communication strategy and practices and leverage partnerships to support open and transparent information sharing. We need to do a better job at telling our story and leveraging our relationships to provide our partners with the right information at the right time. In regards to our planned road safety initiatives, we're a strong member of the HRM Strategic Road Safety Committee, targeting the primary causal factors of serious injury, fatal MVCs, aggressive driving, including speeding, distracted driving, seatbelt usage, and impaired operation of motor vehicles. Our district analyzes motor vehicle collision information data to facilitate the deployment of our personnel to have the greatest impact on reducing serious injury and fatal MVCs. We have a strategic communication strategy messaging sent out actually during this meeting that targets road safety and specifically on speeding. Supplementing the efforts of both the watches and the district traffic unit are also members of our provincial Southeast Traffic Services, which is based out of Dartmouth. Deployment of our resources effectively using our new Armadillo speed tracker is also a new strategy of ours. The Armadillo tracker traffic collectors that we purchased for the district this year are traffic gathering devices which use their radar systems for monitoring traffic speeds and measuring traffic counts. Data can be collected unidirectionally or bidirectionally in one or multiple lanes. This will help us gather the data and, with our calls for service, deploy our traffic resources efficiently and effectively. In regards to mental health, I cannot overstate the impact that the mass murder in Portapique has had on our membership and staff in Halifax District this year. No police service in Canada has ever had to respond to the totality of circumstances nor the magnitude of tragedy. We are a small division in a small province. The response was not only those 2 days, but continues today in managing the mental wellness of all of our employees. The RCMP recognizes that its most valuable resource is our employees. In order to provide a world-class police service to Nova Scotians, its employees must be adequately prepared for any emergency they may face. Preparedness includes more than formal education. It also includes the overall wellness of the employee, both physically and mentally. In April 2020, an updated H Division Nova Scotia multifaceted integrated wellness strategy was developed. It's an all-encompassing program coordinated through a wellness coordinator and includes such aspects as physical and occupational wellness, mental and intellectual wellness, spiritual wellness, and emotional and social wellness. In regards to training for our membership, beginning in depot, our cadets have a number of courses, but also embedded in a number of their scenario-based training. We have mandatory road to mental readiness training, crisis intervention and de-escalation, managing safely, excited delirium, workplace violence, as well as respectful workplace. Also available, we have applied suicide intervention skills training and many courses through the Canadian Police Knowledge Network. And our operational skills training continue also involve scenarios and other topics pertaining to mental wellness. In regards to external mental health, the calls for defunding seem to be centered on the notion of taking money from police and providing it to community organizations, particularly those who provide mental health services and support. These services are absolutely require appropriate funding. Police are called upon to do work that is far beyond our role, which fundamentally is to ensure public safety by preventing and solving crime. We don't believe the people of HRM want fewer police on our roadways and in our communities, but we can certainly leverage our partnerships to improve service. We're pursuing opportunities for police to work more closely with our partners to further ensure a collaborative response to those in need. Within our Halifax District Community Policing Team, their mandate includes identifying repeat clients of policing services, engaging them when not in crisis, and helping them both identify community support and services and other strategies that would provide them appropriate support. Police continue to be the last line of support for a large population of our most vulnerable and marginalized clients. These include those who are suffering from a wide variety of mental illnesses and other related challenges. This is an exceptionally complex issue with a multitude of services, community and government-based programs that we feel must work together collaboratively to develop solutions. On this, I represent the RCMP with NS Chiefs on the Department of Justice Working Group and Health. They're seeking to modernize the IPTA, which is the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act, and better support our clients in mental crisis, and realign police and emergency and health services in a more efficient and effective model. Next slide, please. This is an information slide only with budget data provided by HRM to me, which I basically saw for the first time yesterday. As you're aware, the RCMP and subsequently my role as the service provider for a contract which is held between the province and HRM. The Provincial Department of Justice invoices the HRM on a quarterly basis for our services, which remains at a 70-30% cost share. The Department of Justice Public Safety and Securities Division is the appropriate contact point for requests for financial information pertaining to the RCMP service delivery model. Next slide, please. For our staff counts, we have 183 regular members and 1 civilian member. Full-time FTE is a full-time equivalent, which includes full and part-time and permanent positions. Not included in the chart, but embedded in the overarching cost per member are 33.5 public service employees. And also worth noting, we have 73 volunteers in our district, ranging from victim services, various citizens on patrol divisions, Stetsons and Spurs, as well as our RCMP auxiliary. Further, there are 12 positions from our additional officers program, which are 100% funded by the province, and 9 provincially funded traffic positions that support Halifax district. Next slide, please. Again, also an information slide that has been provided by HRM. Next slide, please. This is our options for over budget. The request is to secure 1 new resource for the Halifax District RCMP, which we had previously submitted in last year's discussion. However, it was withdrawn in July. The request will further address the growing needs in the areas policed by the RCMP. This service delivery request sets out a request for 1 new regular member position, an administrative staff sergeant to be placed in the Halifax District headquarters. The staff sergeant would report to Inspector Pepper. Presently, she has only 1 admin constable reportee. The requested administrative staff sergeant would provide a layer of support in an area that is outside of police operations, however, an area of incredible risk and liability, which would include finance, public complaints, exhibits, memorandum of understanding, managerial review, as well as human resources. As it relates to professional standards, due to ever-increasing administrative pressures, such as increasing public complaints, we've had to bundle duties and assign administrative tasks to the District Advisory NCO, which is also a staff sergeant out of Cole Harbour. These are not part of his regular duties, and detracts from his substantive duties and are impacting the operational effectiveness of the Eastern Shore detachments. This has demonstrated the necessity and efficiencies of having one position with oversight of public complaints. The complaints are currently being delegated to corporals and sergeants who investigate these in addition to their regular duties. Again, taking them away from the substantive duties, including traffic enforcement and roles as road supervisors. Due to a number of factors, street check education strategy, new online reporting mechanism for the CRCC, which is positive, but has led to increase, and there's been an increase in reporting of public complaints, with the complaints more than doubling between 2015 and 2020. In 2016, we had 19 complaints. In 2020, we had 44. The RCMP is forecasting that with the education strategy being implemented as a result of the Wortley report recommendation and with the national discussion on street checks, this upward trend will continue. Halifax District RCMP is striving to maintain a consistent approach to the application of our external review body, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, CRCC. They report that the national average investigation time for one public complaint is 33 hours. By having a full-time position for the RCMP dedicated to the oversight of public complaints, we would maintain a consistent approach and be able to keep to the policy required response time. Excuse me. There would also be an increased ability to recognize trends in complaints and our behaviors of our members within the district and mitigate issues related to increased complaints, such as supervision and employee health. Another benefit would include consistent report rating and preparation of line officer decisions. There is a need for this position to be at the staff sergeant rank in order to investigate all those that fall beneath the rank, which in general is where the bulk of the public complaints are generated, due to the constable through sergeant being those who have the most interaction with the public. The next area of responsibility for this new position would be the oversight and application of our managerial reviews and mandatory unit level quality assurance or audit assessments. These are a number of portions of the tools that we use to measure our effectiveness of operationally and administratively. A necessity of our business model, these two are farmed out to senior NCOs to accomplish off the side of their desk, which is neither consistent nor efficient. In addition to the duties related to public complaints, the position would have greater oversight of our human resources within the district, which would allow for increased efficiencies. Currently, the district has an accommodated constable performing the tasks, and the constable cannot do all the related tasks based on the rank of the position. The staff sergeant would have oversight and be responsible for the supervision of the constable, which will alleviate these duties from district management and administration officer, which is Inspector Prepper. The position would also be responsible for giving additional human resource support to both the East and West inspectors. There's currently no NCO to perform duties of Inspector Prepper in her absence. This impacts the district and staff in the district. Currently, in her absence, a constable and all related public service employees become the reports to the chief superintendent, to me. It would be an asset to the district to have a designated position within the district to take on these responsibilities in order to maintain continuity within the district. In addition, the position would also be responsible for the oversight and governance of Halifax District's business continuity plans. A significant impact on Dorian has been that the district has become aware of several shortcomings that continually need to be addressed. The business continuity plans are outdated, and there is a need for them to be updated. However, with other equally pressing commitments, these are not being addressed. The estimated RCMP cost provided in this proposal, should the request receive support at all three levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, the position would then be added to Halifax District's regular member complement. At that point, our CDR, or Career and Development Resourcing Unit at H Division, would begin the search to find a suitable candidate, either through existing resources within the province of Nova Scotia or other divisions across the country. Realistically, the position will be filled over the course of the fall and winter of 2021. Halifax District RCMP is committed to serving the Halifax Regional Municipality. We're also committed to respecting the policy, timelines, and pressures associated with the public complaints process. We also need to be able to anticipate and respond to additional pressures on our planning strategies going forward. These include the Mass Casualty Commission, where we must anticipate recommendations from the inquiry, specifically interoperability of support services such as police service dogs and emergency response team. We also believe that further integration of operational communication centers is a real possibility. The recommendations may lead to a requirement to implement operational and administrative changes to the police services model within HRM as required. Also, we will need to assess the impact of recommendations from the review from the Department of Justice Policing Review that may result in policing standards that include changes to the operational and administrative policing service model within HRM. This position that we are requesting will support those efforts to ensure we are well positioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Really appreciated it. Provided a lot of information. There was an omission in the agenda that was provided in that there was no motion provided for the RCMP budget. So I have just pasted the motion into the chat, and I am going to open up the floor to people to speak and ask questions of clarification on the RCMP budget. Councillor Mancini, you were first. Would you mind reading the motion into the record, please?
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Chair. Happy to do so for you. That the Budget Committee direct the Chief Administrative Officer to include the Royal Canadian Mounted Police 2021-22 budget for the Halifax District RCMP as recommended by the Board of the Police Commissioners on January 28, 2021 in the 2021-22 HRM budget. So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a whole bunch of questions. So my first one is to actually the CAO. And I'm wondering if Mr. Dubé could explain to, we have 7 new councillors and people watching today, how does the RCMP agreement work? You know, we were talking about a 70-30% cost sharing. I think the Chief Superintendent alluded to 15 MOUs that are, many of them are not updated. And so could you clarify that and just how things work? And also part 2 to that, Jacques, is there not a flat rate because the Chief Superintendent is also asking for another officer? I'm just trying to understand that. So if you wouldn't mind explaining in terms that if I can understand, make it easy for me to understand, everybody else will be able to understand it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll certainly ask Janice to wade in here, fill in some of the blanks I may have missed, but I'll try my best to answer that question. So the RCMP nationally provides police services in a couple of different ways. So one is under what they call the umbrella contract, and we are under the umbrella contract with the RCMP and the province of Nova Scotia. What that means is that, you know, there's a certain plan of establishment. What I mean by a plan of establishment is the number of officers and personnel that are assigned to this district, and that comes with a per officer amount that's determined on an annual basis. Effectively, it's adjusted annually. So when I talk about 70-30, the 70-30 split, what it really means is that we pay 70% of the cost associated with the Halifax District RCMP services. The other 30% is picked up by the federal government and the province of Nova Scotia, sort of jointly, and that's how that works. In other parts of Nova Scotia, we have certain municipalities that have a direct contract with the RCMP, and in those instances, normally, 90% of the costs are picked up by the municipality, and 10% of the costs are picked up by the federal government to reflect the costs of federal policing within, you know, federal policing issues within the jurisdiction of the municipality. We don't fall into that category. For example, when I was in Moncton as city manager, we had a 90-10 arrangement with the RCMP, which is a direct contract. Our contract is not a direct contract. It's actually, we're part of a contract that is between the Government of Canada through the Minister of Public Safety and the province of Nova Scotia through the Department of Justice, Policing Services. So that's where we fall under. Many years ago, right around amalgamation, I think, there was a discussion, or there was an MOU that was basically put together, and this was, we sort of discovered that about a couple of years ago, I guess. We didn't realize that existed. And it's kind of a non-binding MOU, but it was an MOU nonetheless that reflected the intentions of the parties when it came to resources associated with the RCMP within the district it serves as part of the HRM's territory, right? And what it basically said was, on an annual basis, the chief superintendent would have conversations with HRM, and then we would have conversations with the province to adjust the resource levels appropriately, in consistent with the Board of Police Commissioners, approval and council's agreement on that. So when you think about, when we reflect back on today, and chief superintendent is coming to you with a request for additional resources, that's fair game. That is, it's no different than chief of police coming forward. That conversation, should council endorse that, we would then have a conversation with the province and say, we just want to add one more resource, and it's not that much, it's not very complicated. They would really agree to that, and we would just go forward, and then the authorities would be provided nationally and provincially, and with council's endorsement and the support of the Board of Police Commissioners, and that would just happen. But it takes under the MOU, it sort of takes that conversation, that level of approval. I don't think the province would have necessarily any concerns. And Janice and I had conversations, I think, last year, with the province, and what it came to be was the province really said, look, we're not too fussed about this. If council and the Board of Police Commissioners want more resources, you'll have more resources, right? And it's sort of that simple. So you can think, when you think about resource to the RCMP, think about it in terms of that MOU and that process, and the fact that the costs are subsidized at 30% as opposed to paying 100% of the cost. Okay.
Tony, you're muted.
Thank you, Jacques. I hope that's beneficial to my colleagues too. So, and now I want to move on to the chief superintendent. You alluded to, you have 185 staff, one which is civilian. How many of the sworn officers are actually working? How many are off on leave or injury or sick or whatever the case may be? So actually, how many boots are on the ground right now?
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair. So currently we have 183 regular members, one civilian, and we did some number crunching yesterday after our question from the CAO, and currently our percentage of those officers that are on leave, which includes mat, pat, or a sick leave, is about 11%.
11 on leave. Okay. I think my time is up, Mr. Chair. I'll come back and answer my extra questions. Thank you, Chief Superintendent.
Okay, thank you. To cover off one of the acronyms that we've heard regularly, MOU is a memorandum of understanding. It is basically an agreement about how two organizations will work together in a particular way. I've got a very quick question for Chief Superintendent Gray, and that is one of the councillors had asked earlier if your speaking notes could be shared with the councillors. They had some very good information and statistics with them, and to be able to disseminate them would be very helpful to us.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief Superintendent. So on just a point you made a second ago, you said 11% of your members. So if there's 183 and 11% are on leave, that's 20 people. So you actually have 163 active officers. Okay. Just so I'm clear, so I'm looking at the budget from March 2020, the one we didn't pass because COVID hit and then we had to recast it. So that was 27,480,000. When we actually recast it, we ended up with 27,864,000. So actually more than the March budget. So the current budget that's proposed for 2021-2022 is $29,419,000. So that's 1.555 million more than the June, but almost 2 million more than the March. And you want 151,000 ongoing for an additional member. So it's actually about over 2 million more than the March budget is what we're looking at. So I guess from your perspective, the budget that you've presented, 29 million, it's good enough. I guess it's kind of like icing on the cake. It's a little bit extra for the extra member. Otherwise, you would have included it in your other budget. Am I correct in that understanding?
Through you, Chair, the budget that's presented is from the province. It's not from myself, or it's not from the RCMP. So I actually cannot comment on the increase to the budget other than my ask, which is for the one member.
Okay, so you're in a bit of a pickle because of the contract we have with the province. So if you had your druthers, it would be 164 members, not 163 sworn officers active. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. My preference would actually be closer to 200 officers, but Councillor Mason.
I want a pony, Chair, and we don't all get what we want. So thank you very much for the presentation. I do look forward to getting those speaking notes. I am faced with a conundrum here, which is, this MOU. I think it was distributed. I'd ask the CAO to distribute that to us again, because to me, when you are getting a service for a fee, an all-in fee, it should be an all-in fee. So we are faced with a $1.55 million, 5.6% increase in the RCMP budget as it stands. We are paying for, what I'm struggling to understand is what is needed to meet the performance standards that should be in the contract we have with the province, that I understand we don't actually really have a contract structured that way, which is my second point I'll make in a minute. Why, if this is what is required to provide adequate policing in the area, why it hasn't been incorporated into the contractual increase that would come anyway, right? Like, we have a police force where we hire people and they're our employees, and we have a police force that we contract and it's a flat fee. And mixing those two seems inappropriate to me. I'd like to know more about why the needs of the RCMP to deliver that service aren't being incorporated into the ask through the provincial contract. And my second question, which I guess is more for Jacques than anything, is I'm increasingly uncomfortable with the fact that we don't have a performance-based contract like we would with anybody else providing a service. We don't have. This is not a reflection of the RCMP, but for me as someone who is being asked to authorize $29.419 million this year, we should have a contract that has service standards and clear expectations for what we're receiving for that money. And my understanding is we don't have a contract with the province written in that kind of way. In fact, we may just have a letter. So I'd like some clarity about that for the councillors, because I've been here 8 years and I don't really understand what's going on. I know, like, there's no way in heck we'd give $10 million to Dexter to plow roads on a handshake deal, right? So I would really like to have a better idea about what our relationship is with the province and with the RCMP, how that works and what the obligations are.
Go ahead, Jacques.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. You, Mr. Chair, to the Councillor and members of the Budget Committee of the whole. So, great question. So I'll just turn back a little bit. So what we have here is a contract between the RCMP, which is the National Police Force, which has its own standards and its own ways, standard operating procedures, and its own quality controls, and the province of Nova Scotia, which is, sovereign government and, represented by the Minister of Justice. So, there is an expectation by us that certain police standards are maintained through the commissioner of the RCMP and her command and her you know, basically assistant commissioners and chief superintendents like Janice across the nation, right? So that's the sort of the foundation of this, right? So you have a national police force with certain standards, and you have a contract of service provision by the RCMP. Then we also have a board of police commissioners, which is there to provide stability and oversight to the RCMP within the district, right? And they have a duty and obligation to ask questions, to ask reports, and Janice and her team actually do that every month. They provide information reports on various things. It is different than the relationship between HRP, obviously, because you know HRP is a business unit of HRM, and they are to follow our administrative policies, and they're accountable to me as CAO for the provision of those administrative policies, and are accountable to the Board of Police Commissioners in relation to policing policy, and not the operational side, but the policy side going forward. So that's sort of the way this works. And the you know the contract between the RCMP and the province of Nova Scotia is a fairly detailed contract, and you know the MOU, however, is something that we had undertaken and clearly have not had time to revisit in you know since last year, given COVID and everything else. We haven't really dusted off that MOU and refreshed it to perhaps include some of the things you're talking about in terms of you know how this should work really between us and the RCMP. I think the fact that an MOU existed with the Department of Justice included is a bit of a problem, to the extent that we need to your point, I think we need to have an understanding in writing with the RCMP as to exactly what they do here, you know, on behalf of HRM. And I would lean towards that, but I haven't really taken the time to work through that. I have not had, Janice and I had not had time to look at that and review that and freely talk about it in any great amount of detail. We'll, you know, I'm certainly committed to doing that and going forward. So sort of where I sit on it, I think that's where we need to get to, is some kind of an MOU. We can't contract the RCMP because the contract is not with us. It's with, you know, through the province to the national force. So it's a bit of a, you know, sort of probably a service level agreement of sorts that needs to be crafted, saying here's the service level standards that we're going to meet and that kind of thing, how I see it. Janice, do you want to add to that?
Thank you, Jacques, and through you, Chair, to Councillor Mason. First and foremost, if I can tell you one thing about the RCMP, it's about accountability. As a provincial police and federal police, I am accountable to a number of different levels of government, including yourselves, and as well as the Board of Police Commissioners. When it comes to policing standards, we have national standards in regards to many, if not all, of our policing strategies, and we're working with the province here and developing them here. But when policing standards don't exist, which there are not in this province, we adhere to our national standards, which I can assure you are based on best practice. So overall, when it comes to accountability, the RCMP and Halifax District RCMP is accountable to yourself as well as to many other levels of government. In regards to the 90-10 split, Jacques, if I can just address that again, generally speaking, that is in reference to a population. That's a population split. And so from a provincial policing perspective, you know, as your provincial police as well, we bring a multitude of other resources and support services to Halifax District just by the fact that we're the provincial police. And it was unfortunate that I know many of you are very busy, and we did address a number of these things in our virtual RCMP information session yesterday, but we will be sharing the PowerPoint and the notes with you all, and so you can have hopefully a better understanding of what that looks like in regards to what we do bring to the table as the provincial police in Halifax District specifically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Jacques, would you like to add to that any further? Okay. Mayor Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janice. And let me just offer my support to you and to the force in light of the year that we've had and the tragic killing of Heidi Stevenson, who many of us knew and appreciated, and the impact that that's had on your force members. And I think that your leadership in the last year has been very strong and under very difficult circumstances. So thank you for that. Now, having said that, I do share a concern I'm hearing from some other councillors about the budget. You know, 5 years ago, 2016-17, the RCMP budget was some $24 million. And now we're being asked to approve 29.4 plus and over. While the budget of HRM has grown by about 12 to 13%, the budget of the RCMP is grown by almost 22%. It's significant. And we don't really have a lot of control over that. And I don't know if it's fair to ask you, as you say, you don't have much that you can defend in the overall budget outside of the one officer that you're looking for. But do you have a sense if that's normal for most municipalities? Are most municipalities facing these kind of increase in RCMP costing?
First and foremost, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your comments in regards to the district and our membership. It's very much appreciated. Unfortunately, I really can't offer that. I'm certainly happy, though, to go back to our finance and look at some comparisons in regards to our contracts, certainly across the province when it comes to increases. So I can certainly come back to yourself with that information, if or certainly connect you with the person that has that information.
Yeah, it's just a challenge for us that you know, we have had a growing population, but we haven't grown by 22% in 5 years in any district. Certainly, you know, some of the major growth was in the core of the city, provided by HRP. So it's just a challenge. It makes it difficult for us. So if you can give me some information, I would appreciate it. And it's what's in my head as we're trying to approve this budget is, you know, where does the money go and how do we, and what control do we have over it? And it's a bit of a challenge, but again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a minute and comment on the two budgets, the HRP budget and the RCMP budget. The HRP budget that we are looking at is, depending on the figures that you're looking at, 99 million or 88 million. And the RCMP budget is 29 million. So it's 1/3 of that amount. At the same time, going from the speaking notes from the chief superintendent, they cover, I think it was 97% of the geography, 41% of the residents, and yet they only have 26% of the officers on strength. One of the numbers that we have heard in the past is that HRP has one member to every 450 citizens that they serve. The RCMP have one member to every 750 residents that they serve. So this might not be as much of a dramatic increase as some people are commenting and looking at it, but it might be a step in the way of a correction. So I would simply like to leave that with you. And Councillor Cuddle, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was thinking along the same lines here in terms of officers and service delivery. One of the other comparisons that might be helpful is crimes reported, so or calls for service from RCMP versus HRP, just as a comparison. I don't know if anyone has those numbers, or at least if we had them for the RCMP.
Thank you for your question, through your chair. So we have the statistics that Chief Kinsella initially spoke to, the crime severity index. Those were HRM numbers, so those included HRP and RCMP, as well as the calls for service from the integrated emergency services. So IES were joined HRP and RCMP calls. So the numbers do exist, however, just not at my fingertips when it comes to data splitting HRP and RCMP.
Okay, that would be interesting to have. I think informative is in terms of understanding, the staffing to service levels. The other question I had was about the armadillos. Traffic speeding, traffic services, traffic safety, speeding, stunting. Those are all big issues, particularly I find in the rural areas where there are less. There's less of a police presence on a kind of daily basis. I'm sorry, how many armadillos are you looking at purchasing, and given the immense geography, do you believe that that's enough armadillos to cover that territory effectively?
So we've purchased 2, and they are for the entire district, and so our traffic services will be deploying them based on, first and foremost, statistics, but also calls from the community. And we'll certainly be, looking at how successful or how valuable they are in regards to our enforcement efforts, and we might look to purchase more in the future.
Because I could imagine that those tools, like given the geography and the number of officers that you have, that tools like that become increasingly important. So I would, just given the priority on traffic safety, would want to make sure that we are well equipped in that department. And do we need more, or are you this year looking to see how they perform?
Through your chair, thank you. I think we're going to look and see how they perform, but also, again, like anything, see if the value for the money is there. But again, we need to rely on our community as well to continuously report and tell us the areas of concern, and then this equipment will help support that as well.
I look forward to working with you on that education component. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Superintendent, I know you alluded to in your presentation, but could you once again talk about the impact of not adding this new staff sergeant to your team? What does that mean if you don't get that staff sergeant, and how do you compensate for that?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Mancini, and through your chair. I think what we'll do is we'll continue to manage. Unfortunately, we will continue to have to assign the public complaints to our NCOs and other investigators on the road, which again takes them away from their substantive duties. Earlier, I apologize, I don't remember which councillor was speaking about being able to manage, are we managing? Well, we're not managing because we have police officers, roadable operational police officers that are being tied up doing, I would call it administrative or accountability duties. So again, we continuously, like our partners in HRP, we continuously assess our resources as where they're aligned. Operationally, we assess our response model all the time in regards to where our police officers are, but we also have to do those efficiencies administratively as well. But we do have requirements in regards to reporting timelines with the CRCC. That's the governance and the external body that manages our public complaints. There's a lot of pressure on us to ensure that these are done in a timely manner, serving our clients. So again, what ends up falling off, is sometimes it's community response, sometimes it's time being in the community when they have other duties that they're responsible to do that have timelines, accountability, as well as, tracking requirements. So if they're doing those, then they're not having their quote unquote free time to be in the community engaging with our community members.
Thank you for that. You know, to be fair to HRP, the question was asked of them, the opposition, to use the use of polygraphs. Chief Superintendent, does the RCMP use polygraphs for investigations and for hiring? Is that part of their practice?
Yes, Councillor Mancini, and through you, Chair, we do use a polygraph for a number of different reasons. Yes, for applicants, they do have to have a polygraph, which of course screens them for, I'll say, suspect behavior, but also bias, racism. You know, the polygraph is used for a number of different things. And to be honest, from my experience, again, I'm not an expert, but it's not the polygraph, it's the interview that accompanies the polygraph that aligns our mission and vision and values with our cadets. You know, we want to make sure that that's part of it. And so it's the polygraph interview that is what that's about. When it comes to investigative techniques, it is a tool. I know from my experience, and I'm lucky as my team has, I've worked all over the country. Every single police department has some capacity where they use the polygraph as an investigative tool when it comes to interviewing our accused or our suspects, as well as just some other strategies that I'm just not at liberty to talk about in this forum.
Yeah, thank you for that. Body-worn cameras. So the Prime Minister has announced that RCMP will be all be using body-worn cameras. Is there a pilot program? Is that going on in Nova Scotia? Am I correct in understanding that, Chief Superintendent?
Thank you, Councillor Mancini, and through you, Chair. So yes, we have, the RCMP has, we've been using body-worn cameras for approximately a decade. Majority of those cameras have been used in public order demonstrations across the country. We currently have a pilot that is ongoing in Nunavut, and for a number of reasons why it's there, the small membership, but also the temperatures, as well as some other, capacity issues. We have policy already developed in regards to body-worn cameras, and also for your information, the federal government has already dedicated $238.5 million to the RCMP's body-worn camera initiative, which covers a 6-year commitment to the provinces in regards to that funding. We have not provincial policy that is being developed as well, but that is obviously pending in regards to the pilot in Nunavut.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, my time is up, but there's nobody else on the list. May I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Last question. Chief Superintendent, I've asked you this question 2 or 3 times at the Board of Police Commission. I know it's not in your responsibility, but it's with regard to the launching of the Wortley report. When the Wortley report came up, Chief Dan Kinsella chose to apologize for his relationship, the HRP's relationship with African Nova Scotia people. The question that was asked, is RCMP looking at that? And that was going up to, again, I understand that's not you, Chief Superintendent, but that's going up to Ottawa. Do you have any update at all? Do you know that's a conversation? Are they looking at that? Have they made a decision on an apology to our African Nova Scotia citizens?
Thank you, Councillor Mancini, through your chair. So yes, you have asked that question a number of times, and I'll continue to provide the response, however updated as of now. So the CRCC has been conducting their external investigation. I know that there's 2 investigations. One is pertaining to street checks, and the other one is pertaining to bias-free or bias awareness training for the RCMP. The latest update that we have, which is this month, is that it's continuing. They have not concluded it. What I do know that as well, though, is that a number of our police officers and staff have been interviewed. So I'm hoping that this is progressing well. I cannot understate the impact that COVID has had on a number of these, but that's our latest update.
And thank you. And again, I understand that this is not something that you can say yay or nay to. It's above you, but I will continue to ask. It's important. You look at our African Nova Scotia citizens, the largest community is which are RCMP police. And so I believe it's really important that hopefully that apology will come down from RCMP. Thank you, Superintendent, Chief Superintendent, to you and your members. I appreciate the work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further speakers in the chat. If there is anybody else who would.
Chair, Councillor Cleary here. I did put in the chat that I had a question.
I did not see that. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Just a very quick question. Well, I'll start with a comment. So first, I'm kind of between the RCMP and the HRP, shocked and disappointed that polygraph testing is used for both investigations and hiring. So I guess my question would be to Chief Inspector or Chief Superintendent Gray. I'm just looking on the American Psychological Association website, and they have a whole section devoted to polygraphs. And so when we look at the studies that have been done, the highest accuracy rate ever recorded was about 90%. On average, they seem to be about 70%. But of course, that is going to be impacted by the quality of the tester, the examinee, the environment. It would seem to me that in this research, the most impactful effect is actually the anxiety produced in the examinee, forcing confessions, which we know both American courts and Canadian courts have said you can't use the same court because it's unreliable. So I guess what research is being done within the RCMP on these kind of techniques? I'll put my professor hat on for a second. My doctoral studies is in human resource management, and anyone will tell you that a validated integrity test is far more valuable than a polygraph. So what research is being done in the RCMP with regard to this? Because I'm quite shocked is the only word I can use that these are being regularly used and defended.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary, and through you, Chair. What I can say is that, again, I'm not an expert in polygraph. However, I have a number of years in major crime investigations where we did utilize the polygraph on a number of different events or occasions. But one thing is that we're not the United States, we're Canada. And the RCMP, we have significant and high standards in regards to our training as well as validation, best practices. The RCMP, as I stated before, when it comes to accountability, we are consistently and constantly assessing and reassessing our business, our standards and our investigative tools. And I'm hopeful that in this province, as we work towards policing standards, this will be embedded in that. This will be a part of it when it comes to our investigative standards, but also our recruiting standards and our screening tools. And if I can restate it as well as that, again, based on my experience, it's not the polygraph test, it is the skill and ability of our interviewers as opposed to interrogators, but our interviewers in regards to how they utilize and how they glean the information from whether it be the applicant or an accused. It's not the actual test, because we know that there is significant research and reporting in regards to the actual test and its validity or its how it is applied.
Okay, I'm not at all satisfied with the answer, but I'll accept the answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any further speakers in the chat. And so I guess I would call for the question.
Question.
Question on the motion on the floor. District 4, Councillor Purdy.
Sorry about that. In favor.
5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
7, Councillor Mason.
In favor.
8, Councillor Smith.
4.
District 9, Councillor Cleary.
No.
10, Councillor Morse.
In favor.
11, Councillor Cuttle.
In favor?
12, Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion?
District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Councillor Lovelace is currently in an appointment and might not be able to join us.
District 15, Chair Russell.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Oathead.
Yes.
District 1, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion and just wondering about the over where that fits, just as a point of order.
Let's talk about that after we go through the roll. Thank you.
District 2, Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
3, Councillor Kent.
In favor.
And Mayor Savage.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, so we've approved this. Is there no conversation about the options over budget?
I'm not sure if there is at this point or not. I'm going to have to ask our solicitor or the clerk.
Sorry, the question is the process for dealing with respect to the proposed overs?
Yes. Now that we have voted on and approved the main motion, can we discuss the overs?
Yeah, at any time in the budget processes, a member could move to add an item to the BAL or the over list. So if there was the opportunity now in the schedule and you wish to deal with it while the RCMP is here, is probably the time to test a motion, which would be to add it to the the parking lot.
I would make the motion to add it to the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. And so this is for the one new officer position that we have in the... Becky, Councillor Kent, thank you very much for seconding that. Is there any discussion on this motion? Not seeing any discussion, not seeing any messages in the chat.
Sorry, I do have a question. I'm just looking at the motion that Ian put in the chat. Is it for 151 or is it for a percentage of the 151?
For this year, the person would be hired halfway through the year, so it would be $75,890 for the 2021 fiscal year, and then ongoing it would be the $151,000.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this motion is for the ongoing additional funding.
This would be the ongoing amount. That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers?
Mr. Chair, it's Tim. Could I just get a breakdown of the 150? Sorry, I may have missed something during Janice's presentation. I apologize. The 151,000. That's more than salary, obviously, particularly if we're only paying 70% of it. So can I just get a little further breakdown on the 151, assuming a full year at 151? Thanks.
Chief Superintendent.
Yes, thank you for your question. And so the 151 is actually, it's the all-in number in regards to what a member costs. There's a number of different criteria that's included in with that. Again, I'm actually, when it comes to, there is a slide that has all of those items in it. Again, it's not my place to providing that information. However, the 151 is the 70%. That is the 70% cost. So included in that is the members' pay. There's also a cost sharing in regards to our public service employees. There's what we call O&M, which is includes a share of a vehicle, fuel, training, pension. There's a number of, you don't get charged for pros. You get money back for that. That's the, because we use IES for our dispatching. So there's a number of different items that are all included in the overarching cost for one member. And no matter what the rank, it's all evened out over this one amount.
Okay. All right, so that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Superintendent, if I had a screenshot from the presentation from yesterday, would there be any objection if I shared those numbers?
Oh, that's the DOJ's
Yeah,
slide.
that's the DOJ's slide that they presented to you yesterday, and again, we're just grappling here to find it for you. But if you have it handy, then oh, you don't have that, do you?
I have that handy.
Yeah.
That is handy, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is all of the information that goes into the $151,000. Do we have any further questions on this slide or?
Mr. Chair, not necessarily on this slide, but I do in the chat have a comment request.
Ah, there we go. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know this is going to oversimplify things, but from the earlier conversations, my thought is that if this does go to the parking lot, it actually does mean that more resources are in community as opposed to people doing admin work off the side of the desk. This actually puts more people in the right place in community. Would I be correct in that very, very simple over explanation?
Chief Superintendent?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was a question, Councillor. Yes, I would say yes, because currently, as stated before, the public complaints are being, the majority of them are being done by our NCOs on the road. But this position would be more about coordinating it, coordinating the public complaints as well as the number of other items that I listed that are currently being done all by fully operational members on the road presently.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. And this might have been mentioned before, but I can't remember. So Chief Gray, why do you have to come to us for this budget ask rather than going to the province for the increase in the budget that they provide to you?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and through you, Chair. So this is the process that has been developed by through the agreement between the province and HRM. The MOU was actually between HRM and the province. The RCMP is only the service provider. So this is the process that was decided on and agreed upon. And so by me coming to the council, the police board first, obviously, and now council, it is part of the overarching strategy. And I don't know if the CAO can provide more, but this is the process.
Go ahead, John.
I can just add that the province won't agree to an increase in the overarching contract with the RCMP unless they know that HRM is prepared to pay those costs.
And Jacques, if you have anything further? No,
well, that's pretty much it. Council is the decision-making body here in relation to this, so we need council's direction.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So did this over item come to the police commission? It may have been discussed while I was in the other meeting I had to go to. Or is this coming, so like the part that I'm having a hard time with here, just as a former police commission member, is did the police commission endorse asking for this? I'm looking on my screen at where Lindell's staring at his screen.
Yes, and through you, Chair, I can say yes, we did present it to the Police Board of Commissioners and they supported the ask.
Okay, thank you. And the other piece that has me thinking is when the CAO just said that they wouldn't want to increase the contract amount of the province unless they knew we were going to pay it. was the first time I've heard that we had any flexibility in disagreeing with the contract amount going up. So that's something I'll certainly be exploring later. But thank you for those questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any further questions in the chat on either computer. Mr. Traves, you look like you would like to say something.
Well, just to clarify, based on Councillor Mason's comments, my comments were directed to an increase in services. If we require more boots on the street or other services from the RCMP, the province is not going to agree to that unless they're comfortable that we will actually cover those costs. The contract otherwise is somewhat limited in our ability to impact in terms of that cost structure and what gets passed to us.
Well, so that still goes to the core of the issues we have without having a reliable, clear, concise MOU, right? Which is, what are we paying for, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just on that same note, so I mean, because the whole contract piece with the RCMP and how that all works is it's fuzzy to me. If we vote to add an additional staff person, does the province still then end up covering a portion of that cost? Or if we add an additional staff person, are we saying, dear province, we would like an extra RCMP and we'll pay the whole thing for that?
Thank you, Councillor Austin, and through you, Chair. No, it's the province would continue to pay their 30% of that cost share. And further to Councillor Mason's question, if I can add, Chair, on that topic, is that I agree with you in regards to recognizing what HRM is paying for. But I think one of the key messages that we are trying to relay in telling our story is what Halifax District as a municipality does not pay for in regards to us being the provincial police and what is brought to the district as the provincial police that is not part of the cost sharing. So I'm happy to share our presentation that we presented yesterday and now distributed that through the CAO.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am at the point again where I don't see any further speakers. So I would ask the clerk to call the roll for the question on this over. Thank you.
Beginning with District 5, Councillor Austin.
Against.
District 6, Councillor Mancini.
You are on mute.
Against the motion.
7, Councillor Mason.
Against the motion.
8, Councillor Smith.
Against.
9, Councillor Cleary.
Nay.
District 10, Councillor Morse.
Voting against the motion.
11, Councillor Cuddle.
Voting for the motion.
12, Councillor Stoddard.
Can I just confirm actual motion that's in the chat here is what we are confirming we're voting for or against?
The amount of money, the amount of funding in the 2021-22 budget would be $75,890. The ongoing amount would be $151,000.
Against the motion, thank you.
Okay.
13, Councillor Lovelace.
Councillor Lovelace is in her appointment, but she has indicated on text that she is in favor of the motion, if that counts.
District 15, Chair Russell.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Otit.
In favor.
District 1, Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
In favor of the motion as it's going to the parking lots.
District 2, Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
3, Councillor Kent.
In favor.
4, Councillor Purdy.
In favor of the motion.
And Mayor Savage.
Opposed?
So we may have a tie. By
Point
my
of order.
records.
A point of order. Also, the Councillor Lovelace's vote can't count if she's not here.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Okay,
I have
thank you.
this listed as 7 votes for and 8 votes against.
Yeah, and that is not including Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you.
That is to confirm. That does not include Councillor Lovelace.
So that motion fails. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't think we have anything else for the RCMP right now.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Kent, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to know what's the impact now of that for you, Chief? Do you have Chief Gray?
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Through your chair, I'd say that we just continue to do it the way we're doing it right now until we find another option, or again, like I said before, we continuously assess and reassess, but this has been an ongoing issue for us for the past, certainly since I've come here, and we've tried to address it in this manner, so we'll have to find another way through other redeployment or realignment of other resources.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate it.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Third time today. And thank you very much, Chief Superintendent, for the information and your presentation and the discussion today. It is now 18 minutes to 4, and we are scheduled to adjourn at 4. And the next item on the agenda is the Halifax Public Libraries. I anticipate that that would take longer than 18 minutes. So rather than us start that, I would ask for, no, I would suggest we recess until Friday morning. I can't remember if I need a motion to do that or not.
Motion to recess?
Motion to recess, okay.
Second. All right.
Great, thank you. All in favor of recessing till Friday morning?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We stand recessed until Friday morning. According to my calendar, it is 9:30, but clerk, if you could confirm that.
We have the meeting tentatively starting at 9:30, but we can get confirmation if there's a additional time that would work better. And if there's nothing, we can just start at 9:30 as the agenda is listed.
I don't hear anybody speaking up about the time, so let's start at 9:30 on Friday morning. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
See you at 9:30.